in Baltimore and on the West Coast, out to Oakland for the week, and then on to San Francisco this weekend, and getting to sleep in the same hotel for a week. The Ravens, meanwhile, will be opening their doors on Thursday night, hopefully to dry paint on the new grass. I've already seen the dry paint. I've stood on the field twice in the last week, so I'm pretty sure we're going to play some meaningless football on Thursday night, at least for the fans, but for many of the young players, an opportunity to get out there and prove what they're made of. And the Carolina Panthers come to town as the defending NFC champions, but of course the Super Bowl losers. Phil Orban covers all things Panthers in Charlotte and Charlotte sports as the sports director at WSOC in Charlotte, North Carolina. But he is a Terp. He is a Marylander. He is an Eastern Shorer. So a little bit of a homecoming for his squad making its way up this way. We welcome Phil Orban on. You can follow his journey out on Twitter at Phil Orban. That's ORBANWSOC9 down in Charlotte. And some lovely pictures of his children on Twitter. What's going on, Phil? Happy football season to you. I guess you've been sweating it out there at camp. The Panthers are kind of a big deal in Charlotte, right?
Yeah, it's pretty toasty in Spartanburg. I'm a little disappointed. I thought we were talking about the Orioles, but we're not. We're talking Panthers.
I will talk Orioles with you momentarily. Come on. You mean the first place Baltimore Orioles, right?
Sounds good, doesn't it?
It does. It does. I haven't had a chance to say that a whole lot over 25 years, so I've really been rubbing that in the last 6 or 8 weeks. But, yeah, for the Panthers, I mean, you get to pass the Gaffney Peach going down there every day, right, to Spartanburg. And I would think that, look, when the Ravens played down there about 6 years ago now, there were 40,000 Raven fans in the stadium and about 15,000 Panthers fans in the stadium that day. And I thought, man, boy, this franchise. Now, I mean, obviously, I take the piss because we should have had that franchise 20 years ago, but I'm happy with what we have. But that being said, that franchise has grown up over the last couple of years, and certainly Cam Newton has had a huge part in that.
Absolutely, and everybody loves a winner, right? So as we saw this support grow, it's not coincidental that it was as the Panthers kind of figured something out, turned things around, and really have been pretty incredible so far.
Well, and for them, it all revolves around Cam Newton, much like here, the health of Joe Flacco. No one was better on the field than Cam Newton over 16 games last year. I mean, that's sort of unquestioned. The big story came when he got to the Super Bowl. Could he lead them there? And he's going to hear that for the next 10 years. My gut is you're going to have a parade down there at some point based on what has been built. The question is, how do you respond from that kind of a year? And I don't know that we're going to solve anything on Thursday night, but much like other teams that have been to the top of the mountain, the Panthers have been a little ravaged here in the offseason. They're going to have to figure that secondary out without Josh Norman, right?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think that's what we're going to try to figure out here in the preseason because you can't really figure much out through minicamp and OTAs and even training camp. I mean, these three rookie cornerbacks that they came in and drafted, James Bradbury and Darryl Worley specifically have been playing well on the outside. Bené Ben-Wickery's coming back. He broke his leg really bad late in the season. So he came back. They thought he was going to be on the outside, but he looks more like a nickelback. They run that nickel package so much. They need somebody with a little bit of experience there. So you're going to have potentially two rookie cornerbacks on the outside. And, I mean, look, the front seven is what makes this defense go. So if the quarterback doesn't have time to throw, and that's kind of the philosophy the Panthers have, if the quarterback has less time to throw, you can get away without having that $75 million cornerback on the outside, and that's kind of what they're gambling on right now.
Well, and obviously with that linebacking core, and as you pointed out, the whole front seven, getting after the quarterback is part of the story for them. We talked so much about Newton last year, but maybe to some degree lost some sight of how great Kuechly and Davis and Johnson, these guys have really emerged. They did not get all the offseason pub the way the Von Millers did, right? I mean, to the victor go the spoils. Their defense wasn't good enough against Peyton Manning in the big game.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, you look at that Super Bowl, and there are just a couple of plays where everything turned, and it really was Von Miller. I mean, the strip sack touchdown, obviously, but that last strip sack, if you go back and watch it, you know, Cam drops back to throw down 7, and Devin Funchess is open. He's beating his guy. He's open down the middle of the field. And Cam's about to let it go. And if they connect and they score, that's a totally different football game. Von Miller beats his man, forced fumble, Broncos score a touchdown and it's over. So, yeah, the game was it's not, like, I don't want to be too much of a defender here of the team, but the game was so much closer than it looked, and really just a couple of plays really hinged on the outcome.
Well, and for Newton to be as demonstrative as he is, the group leader and all that, when the bright light shined on him the last time we saw him play a meaningful game, not the beach volleyball game he played here in Baltimore a week and a half ago, the real game, it didn't reflect well upon him not scrambling for the ball. Certainly the post-game press conference did not reflect well upon him. Certainly 3 days later when he spiked the ball on walking off, on answering any questions after losing and being a sore loser. Now it all begins again, but it begins bigger than maybe it was last year. And I think that there really is a bullseye on him, on the Panthers in a way this year, that it's going to be tougher on them than it's going to be on most franchises. And I don't just mean their division getting better, because that's happened too.
Well, no question, absolutely. But to speak on Cam, here's the thing that I really truly believe, and a lot of guys say this, and I believe it with Cam, like, he does not care what anybody else thinks about him at all. So all the noise and, like, you're a sore loser, and, hey, tell us about the press conference, and what did you learn from the Super Bowl? He's like, look, last year's last year. Let's move on. I don't care what you guys think about how I acted. The people that are close to me, I've spoken with, and I've moved past it. And again, there are guys that say, I don't care what you think about me, and you kind of feel like they're reading their clips and things like that. I just get the sense that Cam never has and never will put stock into what anybody tells him outside of, his father and his coaches and the people that are close to him.
We are chatting with Phil Orban. He does all things sports down in Charlotte. Of course, the Panthers will be here on Thursday night taking on the Ravens in that always important first preseason game. Phil, I know you're just dying to get up here and get a look at this, but you are a Baltimorean, or consider yourself a Marylander and a Terp and all of that. It's really been kind of a fascinating year here for the Ravens to have taken a dip, for the Terps to make it to the Sweet 16 and still be a huge disappointment, and now the Orioles on this first-place run. These are the good times for a guy like you that has a little soil in you from the land of pleasant living here.
Yeah, can I have a confession here? So I'm from the Eastern Shore, right? So when I was growing up, there were no Ravens.
I know. There's burgundy and gold.
And there were no Nationals.
I know.
So I'm Redskins and Orioles. So, like, I've got them kind of on the come up as well. So I'm feeling pretty good here.
Well, you've adopted the first place Redskins, the division champion Redskins, right?
That's right. And we're going to skip over the Maryland football season and just get right to basketball season. And
we don't like to do that, but they're actually going to play 11 to 12 games, from what I've checked. But what do you think of the Durkin thing? I mean, going into the Big Ten and having all the money, that's all wonderful. Now they're going to, have Kevin Plank's money as well. I'm not to say that they can't recruit. I know what the history's been. I've sat here and watched it the last 45 years in getting quarterbacks, which is their problem, and recruiting around the Penn States and around the Ohio States and the Michigans when, Jim Harbaugh's throwing footballs over Patterson Park with his brother a couple of months ago. But I do think Durkin comes from some sort of stock to understand how the game is played, and I do think he'll be around a little while. I don't think he's going to be a 3-year and shown the gate the way like the last 5 coaches other than Fridge were, right?
Yeah, and listen, I'm very active in high school football as well down here, and I've talked to a lot of coaches about Durkin, and they all love him, and they're all like, he's a great coach, and he's going to do really well there, and that's exactly who you want to hear it from. You want to hear it from the high school coaches because he's going to be in those schools. He's going to be talking to those to the coaches, to the players, to the families, and if you can get those coaches on board. I spent some time in Richmond. And Mike London, when he was at the University of Virginia, was getting just as much talent to Virginia, who was terrible, as Virginia Tech. So that guy can recruit. I know Durkin can recruit. It's not going to happen next year. It's not going to happen the year after that. But I feel like the foundation's there to really make something happen.
All right, Phil, you wanted to talk some Oriole baseball, so let's have at it here after the Machado hitting all the home runs, and we've been talking about the Yankees getting busted up and where the money's going to come from Machado. The real question for the Orioles this year is just sitting there for them, right? Whether, the Blue Jays and the Red Sox are going to try to come and get it over the next 8 weeks. Are you, if I give you $1, are you going to bet it on the Orioles right now?
I mean, yeah, but that's just because, I always bet with my heart and not with my head. So, like, that's kind of a fault for me. I don't know. It's so much fun to root for these guys, and it's so much fun to watch them play just because the offense is so dynamic and, like, and the bullpen's there too, right? You've got the bullpen and you've got the offense. When you get into a 7-game series, you got to have, like, a starting rotation that you can just hang your hat on. And that makes me a little nervous.
Well, here comes Dylan Bundy, though, right? I mean, there is some hope there, right?
Yeah, but I don't know. It's like when you look at some of the other rotations around the league, it makes me a little nervous. But listen, I'm not going to bet against my guys, that's for sure.
Are you going to bet on the Panthers this year? I mean, how do you see their season shaking out? You've been there the last 8 months and sort of watched the fallout. And look, I was out in San Francisco for 10 days. I mean, the Panthers fans were all geeked up. They obviously have a quarterback. They obviously believe they can win. Where do you see the bullets coming from in the NFC?
It's got to be the Panthers. And Ron Rivera has talked about this since day one of the offseason about battling this complacency, and they know the history of Super Bowl losers and how they've never gotten back to the Super Bowl and this and that. And it's just like, why? Like, well, we want to fight complacency and we want to do things the right way. Yeah, but so did every other Super Bowl loser for the last quarter century, right? Nobody's gotten back to the game. So I think they've just spent so much time trying to diagnose why that happened, prevent it from happening themselves. It comes from the leaders of the team. It comes from the Thomas Davises and the Luke Kuechly's and the Cam Newtons and things like that. It's just, I don't know. There's something about that Super Bowl hangover that gets teams. They're not the first Super Bowl loser to come back with plenty of talent and not make it back there, right?
Sure. I mean, even the Ravens after the Cundiff kick, there was a hangover to that feels just as bad as losing the Super Bowl.
And on paper, they feel like the best team in the NFC. They feel like the best defense. Cam's the best player in the NFL and this and that. And just, I don't know, it makes me a little bit nervous that everybody's on their bandwagon because they played with such a chip on their shoulder last season to their advantage, right? Like the Super Bowl was the first time when everybody said, okay, they're probably going to win, right? Like they were going to get caught by the Seahawks. And then, well, they blew out the Seahawks, but they didn't play well late. So here come the Arizona Cardinals that are red hot. Well, they blew out the Cardinals. Now they're like, okay, they're going to win the Super Bowl. And we talked about that. We talked about, hey, you play with this chip on your shoulder and you use it to your advantage and you play with this fire. And they're like, no, like we're the underdog still, even though we're the favorites in the Super Bowl, even though this offense couldn't do anything against New England, we're going to play with our backs against the wall and come out swinging. And they lost, right? So how do you play as a favorite? That's the big question that I'm kind of racking my brain over. Like, it seems like on paper, they should get back to the Super Bowl. But I don't know. There's just something there that makes me nervous.
Well, I mean, the back end of the secondary and the losses. And also, one of the things we talk so much about where the skill position players are not elite players. They have an elite quarterback and a nice system. I mean, even Michael Orr, who we gave away a couple of years ago and Tennessee didn't want anymore. I mean, a lot of guys came together to play really well last year. Whether that can be replicated on the offensive side, that remains to be seen. And that's why we're watching preseason football on Thursday night, right, Phil?
That's right. And I'll tell you what, I don't know how much he's going to play just coming off that knee injury, but Kelvin Benjamin has been something else in training camp. And he looks like he hasn't lost a step from 2 years ago. And you keep scratching your head and wondering, like, what would happen if Kelvin was playing in the Super Bowl, like, as well as he's playing now and as big and as physical as he is and how he can kind of get himself open and how Cam can throw people open. What if he was playing in that Super Bowl? Maybe we'll find out this year. I don't know.
Well, it's going to be a little homecoming for a couple of players anyway. Ed Dixon gets to come back up here. Right. Gino Gradkowski is a member of the Carolina Panthers, as is Michael Orr. Always great to have you on. And, Phil, I appreciate the visit, man. Nice to have some expats, some Maryland guys living down there in the Carolinas and covering the Panthers. We'll check in again with you during the season, man.
Hey, my heart's in the 410.
Well, and that's the first place Orioles. At least we share that. The football team in Burgundy and gold is a whole other story, man.
That's right.
Eastern Shore guys. I know how it goes. Good having you on, man. Be well.
Appreciate it. You too. Thanks.
You got it. He is Phil Orban, WSOC out on Twitter. Excuse me, WSOC9 out on Twitter. He is the sports anchor at WSOC in Charlotte, North Carolina. But he's a Maryland guy, Eastern Shore guy, Terp grad, an Oriole fan. We'll forget that Redskin part there. You can find me out in the Bahia Toyota Audio Vault 24 hours a day from anywhere in the world by downloading the TuneIn radio app. You can email me anytime, nasty@WNST.net, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, Snapchat, Instagram, of course, our Facebook live stream, our WNS TV stream on YouTube as well. I'm a very available individual, as you would say. The morning newspaper reaches you at 7 a.m. each and every morning. That is powered up by Planet Fitness and PlanetFitness.com. And last but never least, if there is any breaking news out on the West Coast for the Birds or the Ravens, you get it first on the WNST text service. That is brought to you by Coons Ford of Security Boulevard, and Dennis will be here this Thursday, driving you home and getting you ready for some Ravens preseason football and game one, or as we say, snooze one, down at the Purple Crab Cake. We'll have some fun on Thursday night. I'm Nestor. This is WNST.net, AM 1570, and WNST Taos in Baltimore, and we never stop talking Baltimore sports.